Where are you going? Big baby. Big baby. Hey, you're tuned in. Glad you're here. Sorry. That was Dave just pouting and walking away. He couldn't handle it anymore. But glad you're tuning in. Welcome to 2025. We're going to be continuing our study in Exodus, and we're going to be in Exodus chapter 32. Good evening to everyone else. Yeah. Like all the snow out there? Hopefully it's all we get and we move on to spring. That would be fantastic. That would be great. See, everybody survived Christmas and New Year, so that's good. Got lots of cool stuff planned for around here. Excited about that. Okay. Y'all are super responsive tonight. That's good. That's good. Should be a fun night. Could be a long night. All right. No, I don't hope. No. It's been a long day already. All right. Shall we pray? God, you are good. And I don't even know that we can truly conceptualize just how good you really are. And Lord, as we get ready to dive into this story, we see how quickly we forget how good you are and how we quickly turn away from your goodness and greatness. And so I pray that as we talk about this story, that we won't catch ourselves pointing fingers at the Israelites, but take a moment to do some self-introspection, to really reflect on ourselves, to see where we're at in this story, and to watch your reaction, to see how passionate you are about us and our love and affection for you. And so I pray that you would guide our thoughts and our conversation tonight. Give us wisdom and give us understanding. Guard our tone as we share and help us to listen clearly to each other, but most importantly to you. We love you and praise you and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, here we go. Exodus chapter 32. So we have had Moses up on the mountain. He's been up there for the second time. He's been up there for 40 days, 40 nights, getting all of these details of how to build the tabernacle and the altars and all the things and how ornate it's supposed to be. And he's getting ready to come back down, but he's been up there for so long that the children of Israel have lost sight of all of that. And we're getting ready to pick up the story of what happens when we make assumptions. Well, I'll just leave that there. We know that this mountain is spectacular. It's covered in a cloud and seemingly covered by fires, the way it's described. I'm sure it's got lightning all around it and all over it. But they have lost Moses. Moses is up there with Joshua. Aaron is down kind of tending to them. And so we see what happens in verse 1. Now, when the people saw that Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us gods that shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So again, he's been up on this cloudy, fiery mountain doing, we know what he's doing. They have no clue what's going on. As far as they know, he's dead. 40 days, 40 nights, that's a long time. There's not been any emails or text messages sent saying, "Hey, I'm fine. Don't worry about me." There's no fire signals coming from Moses. Like, they don't know what's going on. So these people are beginning to be a little restless. And they go to Aaron, which Aaron is supposed to be Moses' right-hand man. He's the priest. He's the one that God said, "Hey, you're going to speak for Moses." And the two of them went in, spoke to Pharaoh, were able to win Pharaoh over at some point after the 10 plagues, to where Pharaoh said, "Finally, get these people out of here." And so Aaron's been through all of this, through all the dealings with God, all the dealings with Pharaoh, through all the plagues, and even walking through the Red Sea split and the manna and the quail and all of this stuff. And the children of Israel get restless. They come to Aaron and they say, "We don't know where Moses is at. As far as we know, he's gone. We don't know why he got us out here, but he's deserted us. So make us a god that will go before us, that we can set in front of us." Now, that's a problem, because they know the 10 commandments, the laws that God has already shared with them in Exodus chapter 20 of, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And now they're at the place of, well, Moses is gone, so I guess the law's gone. We need something in front of us, because this isn't enough. It isn't enough that we see a pillar of fire and a big cloud pillar to lead us. It isn't enough that we see this massive mountain seemingly on fire covered in a cloud. It isn't enough that we know that that is God and he's terrifying. We need something here, something of our choosing, something of our doing. We need it to be on our terms. Does that sound familiar? It sounds very much like us. We know what God can do. We've seen what God can do. We read about what God can do. But when everything seems very distant and foreign to us, when we seem alone, we automatically go to what we think it should be. We forget about the reverence that we should have towards God. We forget about his power, his amazing qualities that he offers us. And we go into this notion of, well, I know what I need, so give me that, and that will help me in going after God. And so I just find it interesting that Aaron doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't respond like, hey, no, Moses is fine. God would have done something. Moses will be back. No, God's going to continue. Whether Moses is here or not, we still should trust in God. But he does not say any of that. And so verses 2 through, say again, yep. Yes, that's what we're getting to. 2 through 6, here's what it says. Aaron says to them, not, hey, stop talking this way. No, how dare you say that? He says, you know what? Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. Now, it could be that these gold ornaments are from when, if you remember, God told them right before they exited out of Egypt, hey, go to your neighbors and get your back pay. It could be that as a slave, that's what they wore to signify that they were slaves. Could be either or. Either way, Aaron says, just go get your gold for me. Take it out of your ears. Verse 3. So all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with an engraving tool and made a molded calf. Aaron, the priest, Moses' right-hand dude, the one that has been talking with God and working with Moses, says, bring me all your gold. I'm going to make something for you. I'm going to formulate this calf. And then they said, the people, the children of Israel, this is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt. Could you imagine what is going through God's mind at this point? We're going to read about it in a minute. He's going to tell you what he's thinking. But in that moment, the righteous people, if there were some there, could you imagine the, or maybe there wasn't, which could be even more sad for me, that they didn't react that way. Where were the righteous people, the Levites, the other priestly people that should have said, how dare you, don't say that. And yet, what did they say? This is our God. This is the God that brought us out of Egypt. Now, you could read that two ways. They could be referring to it as this little golden calf is the thing that saved us. Or they could be saying this is the golden calf that represents the God that saved us. Either way, it's wrong. Nothing represents God better than God. We don't need anything. We don't have to have something tangible in front of us to represent how good and awesome and amazing our God is. He is, and that's enough. Does that make sense? And so either way that you read that, they are absolutely wrong in what they're asking for and what they're trying to represent in it. Verse 5, so when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, this is Aaron, the guy who should know better. Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. Verse 6, then they rose early on the next day, offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. They have lost their ever-loving mind. This is only 40 days after Moses went up into this mountain, after they responded of, hey, we're terrified of what's going on there. We'll only talk to you. We recognize how powerful God is. This is also off the heels of the 10 plagues, off the heels of escaping out of Egypt with free stuff, off the heels of walking through the Red Sea, being led by a pillar of fire and a pillar of cloud, walking through desert, being fed by manna out of the sky, magic dust, and quail. And they get to this place after that God has clearly taken care of them. And within 40 days and 40 nights, they're done. We're out. Moses, our leader, is not here. Lots could be said there. And one of the thoughts I want to share is that is why it's so important that we don't get tied into the man of God leading the church. Just a dude fulfilling the call on my life. It is not about me. It is about him. It is always about him. And these people have gotten stuck on, well, Moses isn't here. Give us something else. They're placing almost Moses in this leadership spot that really he doesn't need to be in. They've almost placed him as a God himself. He's representing God. Yes, he represents God, but he is not God. And because now that they can't see him or talk to him or be around him for 40 days, 40 nights, they're moving on. Listen, I can promise you there are going to be times in your life, in your Christian walk, where it's going to be longer than 40 days and 40 nights that you think God isn't listening or talking to you. There's going to be seasons where it feels very lonely, but it doesn't change who he is, and it doesn't change who you are in him. It just means you're in a season of waiting, and those are okay. Don't be like the children of Israel and leverage that season of waiting into, give me what I think I need. Give me something else. So that's pretty much what the notes say. I haven't looked at them at all. I still go back to, how in the world did Aaron get to this place? What in the world happened? Could it be that he's upset that he didn't get to go up on the mountain and he took Joshua? Moses took Joshua. It seems petty to me because Moses says, hey, go back and tend to the people. That's a pretty large job. And maybe he's upset. Maybe he thought, maybe you just leave Joshua in charge and let me go be a part of this. We don't know why Aaron gets to this place and folds so fast. Now, granted, you got a couple of million people coming at you saying, give us something to worship. Give us something that we can attribute to that we were saved by. That's a lot of pressure. But I don't believe everybody was involved in that. And I'll show that here in a second. So any thoughts on these first 6 verses? Yes, sir.
Just a sidelight. Aaron sitting at the bottom of this mountain. He's looking at what is up there.
Yeah.
Fire, storm, etc.
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant place.
Sure.
I don't think I'd be enthusiastic about going up there.
Right.
Let somebody else go.
Yeah.
Then bring me the word.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You can do the hard work. Just come back and tell me. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yes, ma'am.
I just wonder why a calf.
Yeah. Yeah. I wondered that too, actually. I didn't dig too deep as to why it was a calf and not something else. I'm sure there has to be something attributing to some type of god from Egypt that all of them would have been familiar with. And so that's my only guess right off the gut.
It's almost like you would think he's saying to him, okay, you know what, you want to go with that? You've seen everything, and still you're doing this, fine. Go get everything. You want something, I'll go with it.
You know, it really could be that. It could be the opposite of how we read it. Instead of questioning Aaron, it could be, that's what you want? Fine. You're going to be dumb enough and want that? I'll give you that, and you can have at it, but I'm going to be over here because I know that ain't right. And we actually see his response in just a moment and Moses' response to him, that he doesn't accuse Aaron of it. Yep.
Aaron's just not a leader. And he got pressure from, I agree with you, I don't think it was all these millions. I think that they already established a hierarchy.
Yeah.
So that first round or so, that put pressure on him.
Mm-hmm.
And almost start to wonder, was Aaron not doing what he should have been as a priest?
It could be that he wasn't leadership material, because everybody that's in leadership positions really not cut out to be a leader.
He didn't have Moses to lead on.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. He had to make his own call. Sure. Yeah.
That's the other thing, is that people looking back on this, or even in the camp itself, would say, why didn't Aaron just, he was the one that was talking all the time. Well, this is the reason why. It's because this led to this catastrophe. And so. Right. Yeah, because we don't really hear a lot about Aaron, except that he kind of did this over here and this over here. Yeah. Sort of like the revelation as to why he wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. It's a picture into the, yeah. Right. Yes. Maybe there's a reason why he didn't go up on the mountain. Maybe he wasn't clean internally, spiritually enough to go up on the mountain. Maybe Joshua was. I don't know. Any other thoughts? Those are good thoughts. Good questions.
Yes. That's the part that got me the most. It was enough for me. Okay, you're building the calf, fine. But then he saw it and builds an altar. Like, that's different. Yes. Because as a priest, he knows what that altar represents and what the purpose is for that altar. And yet he still builds it.
You said he was out there for 3 days?
Yeah. Yeah, that goes back.
Yeah, that's like a quick time for people to start put pressure on Aaron. And for Aaron
Yes.
to make a cow out of a bunch of earrings.
Yes.
It doesn't seem like it's much.
Yeah. It's my assumption that it was the 40 days, 40 nights, because that's what was talked about a couple of chapters back. Oh, where was it at? Thank you. Yeah. 24:18. And so it just kind of falls in line. Could have been a different time period, but I don't think it was. Yeah. Which, again, that's another sad part to that, Mark. 40 days is all it took for them to say, okay, we're done. We're out. Because every time they whined and moaned, God did something to suffice them. And he's getting ready to do something again, too.
It's actually interesting that the group that comes to Aaron attributes the work of God to Moses. They say, this man brought us out.
Yes.
No, that's not what happened. They got a little confused, started focusing, like you said, on the leader, not realizing or not acknowledging that he's just a voice. He didn't do anything except be used.
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking about that because when God responds to Moses, he uses certain language there that I thought was very interesting. And then Moses calls him out. But it makes sense because that's what they said. That's their recollection, that it's not God that got us out of here. Moses got us out of here. Yeah, that's good. Yes.
It's interesting that most of the tabernacle items are made out of gold. So it kind of relates to that. And also if there was a golden calf, that would be the perfect sacrifice. That would be offered in the tabernacle. So maybe they're trying to get like a permanent sacrifice.
Maybe.
Made out of gold.
That's interesting. They were just ahead of their time is what I hear you say, Brian, for that permanent sacrifice, that one and done. Yeah. Yeah. Just a little small thing, sure. Sure. They build a big furnace. Any other thoughts? Ted, your wheels are turning over there. You're Ted, right? Looks like your wheels are turning.
Yeah, they're turning. I'm not ready.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. So let's look at 7 through 10. So the Lord says to Moses, go get down, for your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. Now that makes me giggle because it's God's response saying, okay, these are your people. You brought them out. And the more I thought about that, I'm like, man, why is he saying it like that? But it makes better sense because when I, again, reading this out loud to you all, after I read it first today, it makes sense because that's what they said. He's almost letting Moses know that this is the attitude of the people. Here's the depth of their spirituality. They think you're the one that brought them out. You're just my spokesperson. You're just a voice. And so he says, your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molded calf and worshipped it, sacrificed to it, and said, this is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and indeed it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, and I will make of you a great nation. God is not happy. So he looks at Moses and says, listen, you need to go. It's time for you to leave. Get down off the mountain. And again, he says, your people. Now, if you were to go back to the beginning of Exodus and watch God speak to Moses and what he's to say to Pharaoh, it's always, God has said, let my people go. That's all the way through there. So we know that God is not saying that, okay, they're just your people. We know that the children of Israel are God's people. What he's referring to, again, is the fact that the people have said, no, we're Moses's people. Then he says that they think that you brought them out. But the reality is, even Moses has said he has brought them out. In Exodus chapter 3, it's very clear that God says, these are my people and I'm bringing them out. So why the change of heart? Why now is he saying, Moses, you brought them out, they're your people? He's not changing ownership. He's not letting go of the fact that he did it. He's just allowing Moses to see that this is where the heart of the people is at. And so then he says they've corrupted themselves. They've messed up. They have walked away from me. They have pulled attention away from me, and they've corrupted themselves. They've turned away already, which I think is interesting because in Exodus 24, verse 3, I want to read this really quick. It says, so Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord has said, we will do. Done. There's nothing else. There's no buts. There's no ands. There's no maybes, ifs. It's just, this is what it is. Here's what God has said. Here's what Moses has shared with us because God said it. That's what we're going to do. And already they're done. We're out. So they turned away, and I can't imagine their anger or his anger. Again, I go back to the things that he's already done. It's an amazing concept to think about the 10 plagues, to be even able to see them visually happen and be a part of them. Like, that's just beyond my understanding. And then to walk out and watch this massive pillar of fire or cloud pillar guide me through the desert, take me to the Red Sea, open it wide open, cross over on dry ground, and then watch it swallow the Egyptian army up. And then to walk again in the desert and have manna fall from the sky, and then have quail every now and again. And then even every time I want something or want something, God gives it to them. And then they get to this mountain and they see it on fire and covered in cloud. And how soon they forget. But I love the fact, and it's such a reminder for me, especially in this story, that nothing escapes his view. Moses has been up on this mountain for 40 days, 40 nights. He has no clue what's going on down there. He's so high up. The thunderings are so loud. It's cloudy. He can't see what's going on, this massive celebration. And yet God says verbatim and word for word exactly what's going on and what they're thinking. Because nothing escapes his view. He doesn't sleep, nor does he slumber. For me, that is a very sobering thought, that there is nothing that I can do to be secretive or deceptive or to kind of cover anything up that he's not going to know about. That's a big deal, by the way. That should terrify you to some degree. Not into not sinning, but just knowing that, man, I don't want to do anything that's going to bother him or upset him or bring not a glorified state to him. I don't want to do anything that's not going to bring glory to him because he's going to see it. And what does God say? Let me at him. I'm going to start over, and I'm going to start with you. It's reasonable. He's done it before, right? I mean, he flooded the whole earth. How dare we not think he can just take out a couple million people and just start over? He's got all the time in the world. It doesn't matter to him. Any thoughts on that?
Kind of like professional embarrassment. Have you ever been told something that you were supposed to know, but nobody told you, but the person above you knew about it? And then that person back briefs you on what happened, and it's just like, are you kidding me right now?
Sure.
And it's like, the Lord's like, hey, by the way, can just let you know this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, so, I mean, I'm trying to like maybe understand Moses' like job, like,
Sure.
I can't believe, like, I wonder how like enraged maybe Moses.
But you know what? When we read his response, he's not. It's almost like he has mercy towards them while God is being seemingly unmerciful. Like he's ready to wipe them all out. But Moses, in his response, basically says, no, wait. You got to think this through, God. You're not thinking straight, right? And so I think his anger comes later because he knows what he said to God, and he's gone to God on their behalf, and they're still goofing it up. Yeah, the anger will come, but I think he's tempering it at this point.
And then I guess it's almost like
Right. And that honestly very well could be with Moses. I mean, he's been dealing with these people that are just all over the place. And he's probably like, I'm not surprised, God. Let me go deal with it. Let's not kill them yet. We know that they're a bunch of knuckleheads. Any other thoughts?
I think God was just looking for a response from Moses. What his response would be.
Could be. Yeah.
Because he knew he was doing it.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good point, Phil, because again, we struggle with trying to conceptualize how God really is thinking about all this, and we can't understand the mind of God. And so we try to attribute all of these emotions that we read in here through our own human filter, and he doesn't operate that way. He can be fully mad and want to kill them all and still love them and want to save them all, and he's able to do that. We can't figure that out. So yeah, it could be that he's just stating that in the moment to get it out, knowing that he's not going to, but to see how Moses is going to react. Yeah, right. How dare you say that, Moses? I'm not going to do that. Right. Yeah. Ed?
It's interesting the way God phrases it. He says, let me alone. It's like he doesn't give anybody permission, but he gives Moses the chance to intercede like Christ does for us. And he gets to, God says, this is what I'd like to do. And he says, the Psalms, God's angry at the wicked every day.
Yeah.
Which means he's angry at each of us for the things we do wrong every day. But those of us who have accepted Christ's sacrifice, he intercedes and says, no, got that one covered. No, paid for that one.
Yeah, that's good. So it's another opportunity for us to see Moses as, again, a type of Christ. Because in God's righteous anger, he has the full right to just blow us all up. But Christ says, no, let's not do that. Let's try to save them as many as we can. And God agrees with that. That's his heart as well, or else he wouldn't have sent Christ. Any other thoughts? Everybody good? Everybody confused? Good. See yourself in here yet? All right, verse 11 through 14. Then Moses pleaded with the Lord, his God, and said, Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? It's a fair question. God, seriously, why are you so mad at them? You know they're knuckleheads. We've been dealing with this for however long we've been walking from Egypt. They've complained the entire way. You already know that they're super shallow. They're about as spiritual as a wet rag, right? Like they know it, but they don't know it. They say it, but they don't do it. They claim it, but they don't really claim it. And he's like, why are you continuing to be angry? They're your people, and you are the one that brought them out. It's almost like, let me remind you, they're not my people. I'm just a spokesman. I didn't rescue them. I just did what you told me to do. This is your doing. And then he says, why should the Egyptians speak and say, he brought them out to harm them, to kill them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath and relent from this harm to your people. So Moses is pleading with him. He's having a reasonable, decent argument with God. God, listen, if you do this, what are the people going to say in Egypt? You're going to turn them away from you even more because now you've rescued this people in a spectacular way, only to bring them out and you kill them all. How's that going to look to them? Now, God already knows the answer to that, and he knows what he's going to do. But Moses, in his human mind, is just working through this and trying to think it through of how is this going to play out and look. And then he says, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven. And all this land that I have spoken of, I give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. So again, he reminds them, don't forget about all these promises that you've thrown out there. You've thrown some major promises. You told Abraham that out of him, this massive family is going to come. What's that going to look like if you kill everybody now? And then you've got Israel and all the promises that were there and all of these other magnificent things that you have stated. What's going to happen then? So the Lord relented from the harm which he said he would do to his people. Now, this puts us in a very interesting quandary because it looks like God changes his mind, but we good baptistry people, we know that God never changes his mind. So how can it be that he relents, that he goes back, that he changes? So if you look at your notes, when you look up the word relent or repent, it's kind of the same thing in the Hebrew. And it doesn't necessarily mean what we think. It's not necessarily relenting in the idea of changing mind, even though that's what it's alluding to. But it's, again, not in the context as changing our mind. And it's still fuzzy to me. Again, it's that we're trying to understand the mind of God. Impossible. But he never changes his mind. And one of the ways that it made sense to me was he desires that all will be saved, right? We know that in the New Testament, Christ came that none should perish. He doesn't want anyone to perish, but he's going to let them. So is he changing his mind? No. He's carrying out his plan. And so he has all of these things that he wants to see accomplished, and he doesn't change his mind. He just has different ways of accomplishing things that don't really make sense to us. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah.
When the Samaritans were disrespecting Jesus, and James and John said, let's throw fire from heaven and just consume them.
Mm-hmm.
And Christ says, you know not what manner of spirit you are, for the Son of Man came not to destroy men's lives, but to save them.
Mm-hmm.
And God's all the way out there.
Yeah.
And I bet you that's going through his mind.
Sure.
Even now.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, Moses is writing the book of Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
So in Moses' mind, to him it would appear like God had relented. And maybe the
Sure.
Holy Spirit allowed him to just write it down that way.
Sure. Because in our mind's eye, it looks like he changes his mind.
Right.
He's ready to wipe them all out. Get out of my way. I will handle this. And Moses is like, no. And then he says, okay. Seems like it, feels like it. So how do we rationalize that when we know that God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and we know that he doesn't change his mind?
God knows the future.
Sure.
Already. So
Well, he's already there.
God is making the decision based on the future that he already knows.
Sure.
And it might look like he's relenting, but Moses might write it down that way.
Sure. Yeah.
And we might say, I'm going to slap you into tomorrow.
Maybe. Yeah.
But that's, not going to happen.
That is a true statement. The statement was, we may say we're going to slap you into tomorrow, but we know we can't because that's not reality. But when God says, I can take them out, he can take them out. He's done it before. Could he have been testing Moses? Sure, absolutely. Yep. Just to see his reaction, how he's going to react, how he's going to talk, what is he going to do? Sure. Anybody else?
I was just going to say preparation. Like, he's going to have to go down and deal with this. And so how is he going to work through this in his mind and sort of like get him in a place where he's going to be able to handle this the way?
You're talking about Moses? Yeah. Yeah, it is a little bit of prepping from God for Moses. Okay, like, dude, you got a problem. You need to go deal with this because I'm ready to burn them all. Go ahead, Seth. You didn't have to. What's your opinion on that one?
I don't think anything Moses said surprised God.
Nope.
So I don't think God is like, oh, I never thought of that, Moses.
Right, yeah.
So God's course of action was always going to be God's course of action.
Mm-hmm.
And his purpose for communicating to Moses the way he did was for the purposes that he already knew. And so I'm here. I'm going, God needs Moses to own and understand this and be able to represent God's heart and intolerance for idolatry and sin and evil. And people have to be able to hear it from Moses.
Right.
Like it can't always be God's going to open up the ground every single time. But he's establishing human leaders who can speak on his behalf.
Sure.
They're paid to do that. And so he's speaking his heart to Moses, so Moses can understand God's heart and lead the people the way they need to be led.
So it's more, what I hear you say is he's speaking his emotion, not really his desire of really what he wants to do. Not that he's lying or just kidding, but I'm not really going to kill them. But man, that's what I feel like. I'm just flustered with him. I was also thinking, I wonder if it's kind of like that reverse psychology thing, trying to get Moses to understand this is what I'm really feeling, so you go deal with this.
The people need Moses to own it the same
Yep.
way God owns it.
Yeah. Or else they're not going to hear it. They're not going to hear it. Yep. Any other thoughts? It's a good one. This isn't the only time this comes up either, by the way. This happens a lot, that it seems like God has changed his mind, but he really does not. Ed, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just, I looked up the Hebrew word, and there are a few,
Yeah.
definitions that talk about the word being used to indicate having compassion.
Yes.
That's one of God's attributes. So I think that's where it was. His justice, his wrath is complete and justified. And, he wanted to kill them and they deserved to die. But I think he was compassionate towards the ones that he knew, just like, Sodom and Gomorrah. If I can find this many righteous, I'll spare the city.
And that's really a good point, Ed, because again, you're right, that Hebrew word isn't just about changing mind. It's more about the compassion aspect, actually. And so for me, when I hear you say that, it takes me to the place of he's probably still mad at him, but I can show compassion to you, but I'm not happy with what you did. I can work with you, but I'm not okay with this, which makes better sense to me than him saying, I want to kill them all. Oh, I love you. Right? Because I don't see that. I'm willing to work with you, but this ain't cool. Go deal with it. Which to me is why he's talking to Moses saying, you need to understand how upset I am, please. Because we do that with our kids, right? I'm really upset. I could bury you in the swamp right now, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to show compassion to you because I love you, but I'm not happy with what you've done, right? It is for me. That's the way it worked in my house because I got a swamp out back and I could bury him and nobody would ever know. All right, here we go. Verses 15 and 16. So Moses turned and went down from the mountain, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. The tablets were written on both sides, on the one side and on the other. They were written. Now the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. So Moses hears God, hears his heart, takes the orders, heads down. He's got the 2 tablets, the tablets of testimony. He's bringing them down. These are tablets that God had constructed and written on with his own hand. Kind of cool stuff. Important stuff. So Moses and Joshua are heading down. Verse 17. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, there's a noise of war in the camp. But he said, it's not the noise of the shout of victory, nor the noise of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing I hear. So it was as soon as he came near the camp that he saw the calf and the dancing. So Moses' anger became hot, and he cast the tablets out of his hands, broke them at the foot of the mountain. Then he took the calf which they had made, burned it in the fire, ground it to powder, and he scattered it on the water and made the children of Israel drink it. Moses said to Aaron, what did this people do to you that you have brought so great a sin upon them? So Aaron said, do not let the anger of my Lord become hot. You know the people, that they are set on evil. For they said to me, make us gods that shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. And I said to them, whoever has any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it to me, and I cast it in the fire, and this calf came out. So Joshua hears the celebration, realizes that it's not anything alarming, but they're celebrating, they're singing. And as they get closer, they see the calf, and Moses loses his mind. So this is the anger that we're talking about. He was prepared that this is a bad thing, but I think it caught him off guard how bad it really was. He is furious, so furious that he throws the very work of God out of his hands onto the ground and breaks it. Takes the calf, burns it, grinds it into powder, sprinkles it on the water, and makes the people drink it. And then he goes to Aaron and says, Aaron, what in the world? What did they say to you to convince you that this was the right thing to do? And Aaron tells him verbatim, they came to me. They were concerned about you. You've been gone for so long. They don't know where you're at. Their leader was missing. They asked me to make them a golden calf, something to represent what brought them out. They gave me their golden earrings. I threw it in the fire and out popped a calf. Sure did. But I love what he says. He's like, don't be upset with them. Don't give them a hard time. They're already bent to do evil. And I did what they asked. Now, nowhere in here do we ever see Aaron getting reprimanded except for the question of what did they actually say to you? So is it that Aaron was just being complicit, just giving them what they wanted, but not even worshiping that thing? But can that really be when he builds an altar for this thing for them to actually offer sacrifices to it? Or could it be that he's like, you know what? Maybe they got a point. Moses hasn't been here for a long time. Maybe he's gone. You know what? Just to keep the peace, keep the happiness, I'm going to give them what they want. May I throw out there, it could be why many churches today are struggling and dying. Because the leaders have given in to the people, given them what they wanted, and it's crushed it. Rather than following the Lord, doing what God has asked them to do, regardless of what the people say. Now, I know that there's also other idiots out there that take that to the extreme and lead in a totally wrong way. But those that follow God, to me, have the strongest churches because everybody's on the same page, heading in the same direction, following the same God. And that's what it's about. Yep. So, any thoughts on that?
Set them down. So, I mean, I know you're hot, but it's like, dude, you're up there for 40 days, or 40 nights. So they're pretty heavy, I'm pretty sure. And you broke them. They set them down.
Right. Yeah. So the question is, why did he break those things? Like, why not set them down and then go break something else? For me, I honestly, I think he just stuck his neck out to God on behalf of these people. And maybe in his mind, he's just hoping that what God told him really wasn't to the extent the way God made it sound. Not that God has any reason to lie or make up stuff, right? But when he gets there and sees it for himself, I think he takes the heart of God in that moment. And now he understands what God was feeling. And he's just furious and he just loses his mind and just, I don't know. I mean, I know it says he throws it down. I don't know. Maybe he just drops it like, you got to be kidding me. Or maybe he chucked it, man. Maybe he's just furious and tries to hit somebody with it. I don't know.
I'm just trying to picture him, like the calf is now taken and burned to ground to dust.
Yeah.
And you imagine holding people down, it's like, oh no, you're going to drink.
You're going to drink this.
You look at every last drop.
Yeah.
So you're like, wow, and it's kind of like, maybe the Lord's like, well, that's a good one.
I didn't think of that one. I wonder what that tasted like. Anybody drank gold water?
A little rich.
Somebody just said a little rich. That's a good one, Bobby.
How do you burn gold?
I'm not sure.
Melt it.
Yeah.
Burn.
I wonder if he just scorched it. Can it? And maybe what was made wasn't like perfect, and maybe he just I don't know.
The footnote says maybe it was on top of a wooden cup.
So he
just molded it around.
I got you.
That type of stuff.
That would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense that it was formed around another form, and that's what was burned. And then he ground out the gold, and that's what they had to drink. That's brutal, man. So Sunday Just kidding. Yeah. The next communion that you drink, be careful. Might have a little gold in that juice. Just kidding.
You think Moses has an anger problem? Because this last meeting with Pharaoh, before he left, he walked out and he wrote that Moses was angry.
Sure.
Because Pharaoh just didn't get it. And I couldn't understand, why would Moses get angry when he's seeing all these things that God did? He just, and we're going to see again where he loses his temper when he gets the rock.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it here, he threw down the tablets. I mean, is that part of his personality?
I don't know, Ted. That's a really good question. Is Moses just an angry individual, or is he taken after the heart of God that's just getting frustrated with people that are just being knuckleheads? Yeah. Yeah. But we know, humanly speaking, it's not the best avenue to solve things. Like we know that. It is human. Yeah. I don't know, Ted. That's a good question. I've always kind of thought that he's had a little bit of an anger issues. Yeah.
Kill the Egyptian.
Yeah. Didn't hesitate. But that was in defense. That was to save his brother or whoever.
I bet he was angry.
Yeah. You got to be pretty angry to whoop somebody to death. And your thoughts?
I would think he would have replaced Aaron.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm surprised there's not more said about that. Like there's not more defining as to really what Aaron's role completely was all the way through that. Yes, sir.
How do you read verse 5?
That's way back.
Yes, I can go backwards. So he makes a calf, and then he says, tomorrow's a feast to the Lord. So the Lord there is Yahweh.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're going to worship the cow one day, we're going to worship God the next.
So one of you weren't in here yet. No. It's a fair question because to me, there's two options to look at it. Either the calf represents God, that they needed something to be able to be seen, like Moses was that representation for him. He's no longer there. We had these gods in Egypt, so give us something that will represent our God to where we can say, this is him. Or it's just give us a God that we can give him all the glory and honor. And for whatever reason, Aaron's attributing that it's going to be the Lord. I kind of leaned the other way, that they wanted a representation, but it still breaks the commandment of having no other gods before me, no other graven image. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where I went with it, because of the fact that it was a capitalized Lord.
It almost feels like schizophrenic to me.
But to me, again, that plays into this narrative of Aaron's kind of playing both sides of the fence, trying to be that spiritual guy, but also be the friend of the people. Dude, it's not good. It's a bad space to be in. Yeah.
The other thing is referencing not having any graven images. They had not been presented that yet.
They would have seen him in Egypt.
No,
Yeah, in 2012. They would have known all of that. Yep, he's already told them. So these tablets that are coming down may be something else. It could be the explanation of all the buildings and all of those things. And again, it could be the timing. It could be that was written to let us know what was coming and that he hadn't told them yet. But I'm gonna argue that they already knew, which is why it was such a problem. No worries at all. I believe so, yes. These tablets are either remakes or something different. But I think when he went up, he's getting all of these commands of how to build, what it's going to look like, all of those things. And so that's what I think when he comes down. Good question. That to me is part of the issue with how Moses writes, because he writes and then comes back and writes some more. And so keeping up with the timeline is sometimes tricky. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's the instigators. You know, there was a lot of turmoil and everything going on. And he should have made them a calf and said, worship the Lamb of God. You know?
Sure.
Not like this.
Sure. Yeah.
He had things coming in from all directions.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that was that, he didn't say, God brought us out of everything, brought you out of everything, even the one, the unbelievers.
Sure.
Was brought out.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the instigators to have the golden calf, because that's what they were used to worshiping.
Sure.
And not the lamb. So our Jesus had to come.
Yep. So the trick with that, Miss Clara, because I agree with the idea of the lamb would be a better fit. It's still the idea of a golden image that doesn't need to be there. Exactly. And so to me, suggesting that we're going to make a golden lamb is no different than making the golden calf. Yeah, sure. So, well, one of the things that Miss Nancy put on here about the bull is a symbol of strength and fertility. And the people of Egypt were already familiar with that. And so that's probably why they picked that golden calf, to show the strength and fertility. Yep. And your thoughts?
Another one, just addressing the confusion in the timeline. If you go back to Exodus 16, verse 35, this is actually God gave manna to the people.
Yep.
Moses wrote down they ate manna for 40 years, which would indicate this was written after he knew he was going to be in the wilderness for 40 years.
Yes.
So they were probably trying to put this together.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, Ted, because I think we think or assume that they just sat down and wrote start to finish. I'm sure there were lots of stopping spots, and he had to pick it up maybe months later or days later or weeks later. And, oh, wait, I forgot about this. I need to go back and kind of pull this back in to help us understand. Thanks for saying that. That's good. Any other thoughts?
I don't actually remember, but Exodus 34, you jump ahead.
Yes.
I can't recall does it not say what was written on them? They are a remake of this.
They are, and I have not read that yet. I mean, I have, but not in preparation. So we'll hit that next week or 2 weeks. Can you hold on that long? All right, let's finish out 25, verse 25. Now, when Moses saw that the people were unrestrained, for Aaron had not restrained them, to their shame among their enemies. Again, he's still talking about the people and not Aaron. Now, he recognizes that Aaron didn't do what he should have done. He should have restrained them, but he didn't. But he still is more or less fussing at the people. Moses stood in the entrance at the camp and said, "Whoever is on the Lord's side, come to me." And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together to him. And he said to them, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let every man put his sword on his side and go in and out from entrance to entrance and throughout the camp. And let every man kill his brother, every man his companion, and every man his neighbor." So the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and about 3,000 men of the people fell that day. Then Moses said, "Consecrate yourselves today to the Lord, that he may bestow on you a blessing this day, for every man has opposed his son and his brother." So Moses steps up and he says, "Here's how we're going to deal with this. I want anybody that's on my side to come right over here." And all the sons of Levi go over, and he says, "Take a sword, go out throughout all the towns or through our area and just take people's lives." Now, I wish I had a great explanation as to why and how and who got picked and why they did. But it's only 3,000. So were people standing in their tent saying, no, it was him. He did it. He was the one that brought his earring. Look, I still got my earrings. Like, I didn't do it. Like, how do we know who was picked, why they were picked, and why those that got killed were the ones that got killed? Does that make sense? So there's something missing here for me, at least, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, that there's some details that aren't quite complete. Am I the only one seeing that?
Because, I mean, if you forced them to drink it, you would know who it was. And then those are the ones he saw as he came down 3,000 people singing and dancing.
It could be. It could be that it was only a small group of people that was pushing for this. And maybe only the ones that drank the water are the ones that are getting it. And maybe you're going to know because they're going to be kind of hunched over from drinking metallic water. It's going to be a little gross, right? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that one. I've got to dig into that one a little bit more, unless somebody else knows something I do not.
Even 3,000 looks like a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, it could have looked like they're going to be coming forever.
Yeah.
These were the ones that gave up their vote.
And was it a fight? Was it a battle? Was it a, hey, if you win, you live. If you don't, you die? Like, I don't know.
They had the swords.
Yeah. So I will have an answer for you, or I will attempt to have an answer for you next week. Because I'm curious. I didn't have a chance to really dig into that. Do what?
Aaron probably started writing people out.
Yeah. Look, hey, Moses, I got a list. Here's everybody that brought stuff to me. Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
If the calf represented fertility,
Mm-hmm.
their playing was probably more urgent in those people who died.
Mm.
Those
Who were caught in, yeah. So they weren't playing hopscotch.
No, I don't think so.
Interesting. Yeah, could be. Could be that it was sexual in nature and they were just happy, excited. All right, let's hit this last part. Now it came to pass on the next day that Moses said to the people, you have committed a great sin. Not just you've committed sin, but a great sin. So now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. I love that Moses wasn't a part of this. Moses had nothing to do with it, but he's the leader, and he's going to go on their behalf to try to make atonement for this. He's going to try to fix this. Then Moses returned to the Lord and said, oh, these people have committed a great sin and have made for themselves a god of gold. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, I pray, blot me out of your books which you have written. What a statement. Please forgive them. They messed up. You called it. You told me what they did. I didn't believe it until I saw it. Now that I saw it, I'm just as mad as you are. They messed up. But I'm asking you, forgive them. And if you don't, then take me out of the book as well. That's crazy, man. I don't know that I could say that. I could go up and I could say, you know what? They messed up. They're your people. They're our people. We love them. Let's forgive them. But if not, take them out. I'm good. Let's start over. Forget all y'all, man. I'm living. But that's not what Moses says. Just take me out. The Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book. Now therefore go, lead the people to the place which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit the punishment, I will visit punishment upon them for their sin. So the Lord plagued the people because of what they did with the calf which Aaron made. So God's going to take care of it, and he does by a plague. That's chapter 32. And that's our God. Oh boy. Yes.
Every man put on his sword,
Right. So your question is, how many people were actually there, and was it specifically just those 3 people that they were to go and kill? I read it as these are the examples. It's everybody's fair game. That's kind of how I read it. It wasn't necessarily specifically get this person, this person, this person. It was even if they're your brother or your companion, if they goofed up, they got to go. Which, could you imagine how hard that would have been? Yeah. No, thank you.
They went from one end of the camp to the other.
Yes.
They had
Just
lots of opportunity.
yes. Yeah. Could you imagine how exhausted they would have been? 3,000 men, that's a lot. Especially if they put up a struggle.
3,000 people.
3,000 people, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting to me that, as far as there was the first mention of a book that God has written where he's writing names, and Moses knew about it,
Yeah.
How do you find out that information?
Yeah.
Was it commonly known back in Adam's day? It's interesting.
That's a really good question. The question was, this is the first time where the book of life, or blotting out of the book, out of God's book, is really mentioned. Where did Moses find that out about? How does he know? And granted, God may have told him, and a lot of conversations going on there, but we're not privy to that. So yeah, it's interesting. I thought the same thing. Like that was pretty soon. When's the next time that we know? Is it Daniel? Or is it Psalms? You know everything. How do you not know that? Any other thoughts? That is very well stated, very simply said. God does take sin extremely seriously. It hurts his heart. It bothers him. And I'm just not interested in bothering him anymore. Not for that reason, anyway.
Also, I can see from these passages, besides what said,
Mm-hmm.
is to be patient. Moses was there 40 days, 40 nights.
Yeah.
Could be more than that.
Yes.
Just the time frame was interrupted for what the children of Israel wanted to do. But God was preparing the rules and guidance to guide the children of Israel.
Yes.
And obedience to God will be a lot of blessings for them,
Mm-hmm.
for us.
Yes. Yeah.
And just because they were impatient for whatever they have in their minds, they have to start over.
Yes.
They have to start over.
Yeah, that's really, really good, Yash. It is a good reminder to us that just because it may feel like dead time to us, God's doing something somewhere. And it's our responsibility to remain faithful and patient until he calls us to do something else, because he's always working somewhere. And we can mess it up if we get too far ahead. That's good. Good job. Any other thoughts? Glad you came back. We were off for a couple of weeks, and I really enjoy this time. I hope y'all do too. And if you don't tell me. All right, let's pray. God, thank you so much for your love and care for us. Thanks for your passion towards sin, how much you hate it, how much it just disturbs you and bothers you. Lord, may our hearts understand that and hate sin as well. Or may our hearts be like yours. Teach us the way that you taught Moses. Speak to us in ways that we can understand and be challenged and to experience truth and understanding because of you. And Lord, help us to be patient. Help us not to get ahead of you or ahead of ourselves. Help us to know that even when we feel like we're in the waiting, you are at work somewhere. Help us to be patient. We love you. We thank you and ask for safety as we travel home in Jesus' name. Amen. Have a good night. Thanks for coming in. You can leave the table.